let's go through this, okay? So we are doing Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. For those of you who are following along, Neale, we are on page 45 of the Conversations with God book. I actually have the book that has all three. It's all three in one, but we're still in book 1, and I'm on page 45. So I don't know if that's the same as the actual physical book or not. But I'm going to read through it, and then I'll stop and we'll, commentary, etc. I love this book. It's one of my favorites. For those of you who are just joining in, Neale Donald Walsch is a man who wrote a series of books called Conversations with God. And what happened was essentially he got tired of living just the everyday struggle, and he just started like, hey God, what's up with that? And so he had these conversations because it built up in him. And then one day in the middle of the night, or one night in the middle of the night, he got up and he just started like typing it all out or writing it all out. And he started it was a conversation dialogue. So that's what's going on here. So when Neale is talking, say the line, and then when God is talking, and I'll say the line, and then, see it that way. So you'll know what's going on when I keep switching in that way. Okay. All right. So where are we at? These laws, I can remember them. Okay, so I'm going to pick up where I left off last, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page as far as like where we're picking up at. So Neale, then if I were to know these laws and obey them, I would never have a moment's trouble again. Is that what you're telling me? So at this point, Neale is asking God about laws, or are there laws that we can live by or that we can be governed by that would make our lives better or whatnot. So he's kind of just, asking those questions, and God is responding. So God, you would never experience yourself as being in what you call trouble. You would not understand any life situation to be a problem. You would put an end to all worry, doubt, and fear. You would live as you fantasize Adam and Eve lived, not as disembodied spirits in the realm of the absolute, but as embodied spirits in the realm of the relative. Yet you would have all the freedom, all the joy, all the peace, and all the wisdom, understanding, and power of the spirit you are. You would be a fully realized being. This is the goal of your soul. This is its purpose, to fully realize itself in the body, to become the embodiment of all that really is. This is my plan for you. This is my ideal, that I should become realized through you, that thus concept is turned into experience, that I might know myself experientially. The laws of the universe are laws that I laid down. They are perfect laws creating perfect function of the physical. Have you ever seen anything more perfect than a snowflake? Its intricacy, its design, its symmetry, its conformity to itself, and originality from all else, all are a mystery. You wonder at the miracle of this awesome display of nature. Yet, if I can do this with a single snowflake, what think you I can do, have done, will with the universe? Were you to see the symmetry of it, the perfection of its design, from the largest body to the smallest particle, you would not be able to hold the truth of it in your reality. Even now, as I get glimpses of it, you cannot. Even now as you get glimpses of it, you cannot yet imagine or understand its implications. Yet you can know there are implications, far more complex and far more extraordinary than your present comprehension can embrace. Your Shakespeare said it wonderfully. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Neale, then how can I know these laws? How can I learn them? God, it is not a question of learning, but of remembering. And what I say is it's a question of observing, because when you pay attention and you look at life and you pay attention to all of the patterns and the trends and all of the details, you actually start to uncover and unravel the laws that they're talking about, these natural laws that govern all of creation. Neale, how can I remember them? God, begin by being still. Quiet the outer world so that the inner world might bring you sight. This insight is what you seek, yet you cannot have it while you are so deeply concerned with your outer reality. Seek, therefore, to go within as much as possible. And when you are not going within, come from within as you deal with the outside world. Remember this axiom: if you do not go within, you go without. Put it in the first person as you repeat it to make it more personal. If I do not go within, I go without. You have been going without all of your life, yet you do not have to and never did. There is nothing you cannot be. There is nothing you cannot do. There is nothing you cannot have. That sounds like a pie in the sky promise. That's what Neil just said. God, what other kind of promise would you have God make? Would you believe me if I promised you less? For thousands of years, people have disbelieved the promise of God for the most extraordinary reason. They were too good to be true. So you have chosen a lesser promise, a lesser love. For the highest promise of God proceeds from the highest love. Yet you cannot conceive of a perfect love, and so a perfect promise is also inconceivable, as is a perfect person. Therefore, you cannot believe even in yourself. Failing to believe in any of this means failure to believe in God. For belief in God produces belief in God's greatest gift, unconditional love, and God's greatest promise, unlimited potential. Neil. May I interrupt you here? I hate to interrupt God when he's on a roll, but I've heard this talk of unlimited potential before, and it doesn't square with the human experience. Forget the difficulties encountered by the average person. What about the challenges of those born with mental or physical limitations? Is their potential unlimited? God, you have written so in your own scripture, in many ways and in many places. Neil, give me one reference. God, look to see what you have written in Genesis chapter 11, verse 6 of your Bible. Neil, it says, and the Lord said, behold, the people are one, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. God, yes, now you can trust that. Neil, that does not answer the question of the feeble, the infirm, the handicapped, those who are limited. God, do you think they are limited, as you put it, not of their choice? Do you imagine that a human soul encounters life challenges, whatever they may be, by accident? Is this your imagining? God. Do you mean a soul chooses what kind of life it will experience ahead of time? God, no, that would defeat the purpose of the encounter. The purpose is to create your experience and thus create yourself in the glorious moment of now. You do not, therefore, choose the life you will experience ahead of time. You may, however, select the persons, places, and events, the conditions and circumstances, the challenges and obstacles, the opportunities and options with which to create your experience. You may select the colors for your palette, the tools for your chest, the machinery for your shop. What you create with these is your business. That is the business of life. Your potential is unlimited in all that you've chosen to do. Do not assume that a soul which has incarnated in a body which you call limited has not reached its full potential, for you do not know what that soul was trying to do. You do not understand its agenda. You are unclear as to its intent. Therefore, bless every person and condition and give thanks. Thus you affirm the perfection of God's creation and show your faith in it. For nothing happens by accident in God's world, and there is no such thing as coincidence, nor is the world buffeted by random choice or something you call fate. If a snowflake is utterly perfect in its design, do you not think the same could be said about something as magnificent as your life? Neil, but even Jesus healed the sick. Why would he heal them if their condition was so perfect? God, Jesus did not heal those he healed because he saw their condition as imperfect. He healed those he healed because he saw those souls asking for healing as part of their process. He saw the perfection of the process. He recognized and understood the soul's intention. Had Jesus felt that all illness, mental or physical, represented imperfection, would he not have simply healed everyone on the planet all at once? Do you doubt that he could do this? Neil: no, I believe he could have. God: good. Then the mind begs to know, why did he not do it? Why would the Christ choose to have some suffer and others be healed? For that matter, why does God allow any suffering at any time? This question has been asked before, and the answer remains the same. This is perfection in the process, and all life arises out of choice. It is not appropriate to interfere with choice, nor to question it. It is particularly inappropriate to condemn it. What is appropriate is to observe it, and then to do whatever might be done to assist the soul in seeking and making a higher choice. Be watchful, therefore, of the choices of others, but not judgmental. Know that their choice is perfect for them in this moment now. Yet stand ready to assist them should the moment come when they seek a newer choice, a different choice, a higher choice. Move into communion with the souls of others, and their purpose, their intention, will be clear to you. This is what Jesus did with those he healed, and with all those whose lives he touched. Jesus healed all those who came to him or who sent others to him, supplicating for them. He did not perform a random healing. To have done so would have been to violate a sacred law of the universe. Allow each soul to walk its path. Neil: but does that mean we must not help anyone without being asked? Surely not, or we would never be able to help the starving children of India, or the tortured masses of Africa, or the poor, or the downtrodden anywhere. All humanitarian effort would be lost, all charity forbidden. Must we wait for an individual to cry out to us in desperation, or for a nation of people to plead for us to do what is obviously right? God: you see, the question answers itself. If a thing is obviously right, do it. But remember to exercise extreme judgment regarding what you call right and wrong. A thing is only right or wrong because you say it is. A thing is not right or wrong intrinsically. Neil: isn't it? God: righteous or wrongness is not an intrinsic condition. It is a subjective condition in a personal value system. By your subjective judgments, do you create yourself. By your personal values, do you determine and demonstrate who you are. The world exists exactly as it is so that you may make these judgments. If the world existed in perfect condition, your life process of self-creation would be terminated. It would end. A lawyer's career would end tomorrow a lawyer's career would end tomorrow were there no more litigation. A doctor's career would end tomorrow were there no more illness. A philosopher's career would end tomorrow were there no more questions. And Neil: and God's career would end tomorrow were there no more problems. God: precisely. You have put it perfectly. We, all of us, would be through creating were there no more to create. We, all of us, have a vested interest in keeping the game going. Much as we all say we would like to solve all the problems, we dare not solve all the problems, or there will be nothing left for us to do. Your industrial military complex understands this very well. That is why it opposes mightily any attempt to install a war no more government anywhere. Your medical establishment understands this too. That is why it staunchly opposes it has to for its own survival. Any new miracle drug or cure, to say nothing of the possibility of miracles themselves. Your religious community also holds this clarity. That is why it attacks uniformly any definition of God which does not include fear, judgment, and retribution, and any definition of self which does not include their own idea of the only path to God. If I say to you, you are God, where does that leave religion? If I say to you, you are healed, where does that leave science and medicine? If I say to you, you shall live in peace, where does that leave the peacemakers? If I say to you the world is fixed, where does that leave the world? What now of plumbers? The world is filled with essentially two kinds of people: those who give you things you want and those who fix things. In a sense, even those who simply give you things you want, the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers, are also fixers. For to have a desire for something is often to have a need for it. That is why addicts are said to need a fix. Be careful, therefore, that desire not become addiction. The world will always have problems. Are you saying that you actually want it that way? God, I am saying that the world exists the way it exists, just as a snowflake exists the way it exists, quite by design. You have created it that way, just as you have created your life exactly as it is. I want what you want. The day you really want an end to hunger, there will be no more hunger. I have given you all of the resources with which to do that. You have all the tools with which to make that choice. You have not made it. Not because you cannot make it. The world could end world hunger tomorrow. You choose not to make it. You claim that there are good reasons that 40,000 people a day must die of hunger. There are no good reasons. Yet at a time when you say you can do nothing to stop 40,000 people a day from dying of hunger, you bring 50,000 people a day into your world to begin a new life. And this you call love. This you call God's plan. It is a plan which totally lacks logic or reason, to say nothing of compassion. I am showing you in stark terms that the world exists the way it exists because you have chosen for it to. You are systematically destroying your own environment, then pointing to so-called natural disasters as evidence of God's cruel hoax or nature's harsh ways. You have played the hoax on yourself, and it is your ways which are cruel. Nothing is more gentle than nature, and nothing has been more cruel to nature than man. Yet you step aside from all involvement in this, deny all responsibility. It is not your fault, you say, and in this you are right. It is not a question of fault, it is a matter of choice. You can choose to end the destruction of your rainforest tomorrow. You can choose to stop depleting the protective layer hovering over your planet. You can choose to discontinue the ongoing onslaught of your Earth's ingenious ecosystem. You can seek to put the snowflake back together, or at least to halt its inexorable melting. But will you do it? You can similarly end all war tomorrow, simply, easily. All it has ever taken is for all of you to agree. Yet if you cannot all agree on something as basically simple as ending the killing of each other, how can you call upon the heavens with shaking fists to put your life in order? I will do nothing for you that you will not do for yourself. That is the law and the prophets. The world is in the condition it is in because of you, and the choices you have made or failed to make. Not to decide is to decide. The earth is in the shape it is in because of you, and the choices you have made or failed to make. Your own life is the way it is because of you, and the choices you have made or failed to make. Neil, but I did not choose to get hit by the truck. I did not choose to get mugged by that robber or raped by that maniac. People could say that. There are people in the world who could say that. God, you are all at root cause for the conditions which exist, which create in the robber the desire or the perceived need to steal. You have all created the consciousness which makes rape possible. It is when you see in yourself that which caused the crime that you begin at last to heal the condition from which it sprang. Feed your hungry. Give dignity to your poor. Grant opportunity to your less fortunate. in the prejudice which keeps masses huddled and angry with little promise of a better tomorrow. Put away your pointless taboos and restrictions upon sexual energy. Rather help others to truly understand its wonder and to channel it properly. Do these things and you will go a long way toward ending robbery and rape forever. As for the so-called accident, the truck coming around the bend, the brick falling from the sky, learn to greet each such incident as a small part of a larger mosaic. You have come here to work out an individual plan for your own salvation. Yet salvation does not mean saving yourself from the snares of the devil. There is no such thing as the devil, and hell does not exist. You are saving yourself from the oblivion of non-realization. You cannot lose in this battle. You cannot fail. Thus, it is not a battle at all, but simply a process. Yet, if you do not know this, you will see it as a constant struggle. You may even believe in the struggle long enough to create a whole religion around it. This religion will teach that struggle is the point of it all. This is a false teaching. It is in not struggling that the process proceeds. It is in surrendering that the victory is won. Accidents happen because they do. Certain elements of the life process have come together in a particular way at a particular time with particular results which you choose to call unfortunate. For your own particular reasons. Yet they may not be unfortunate at all, given the agenda of your soul. I tell you this, there is no coincidence and nothing happens by accident. Each event and adventure is called to yourself by yourself in order that you may create and experience who you really are. All true masters know this. This is why mystic masters remain unperturbed in the face of the worst experiences of life, as you would define them. The great teachers of your Christian religion understand this. They know that Jesus was not perturbed by the crucifixion, but expected it. He could have walked away, but he did not. He could have stopped the process at any point. He had that power, yet he did not. He allowed himself to be crucified in order that he might stand as man's eternal salvation. Look, he said, at what I can do. Look at what is true, and know that these things and more shall you also do. For have I not said ye are gods? Yet you do not believe. If you cannot, then believe in yourself, believe in me. Such was Jesus' compassion that he begged for a way and created it, to so impact the world that all might come to heaven. Self-realization, if in no other way than through him, for he defeated misery and death, and so might you. The grandest teaching of Christ was not that you shall have everlasting life, but that you do. Not that you shall have brotherhood in God, but that you do. Not that you shall have whatever you request, but that you do. All that is required is to know this. For you are the creator of your reality, and life can show up no other way for you than that way in which you think it will. You think it into being. This is the first step in creation. God the Father is thought. Your thought is the parent which gives birth to all things. Neil, this is one of the laws we are to remember? God, yes. Neil, can you tell me others? God, I have told you others. I told you them all since the beginning of time. Over and over have I told you them. Teacher after teacher have I sent you. You do not listen to my teachers. You kill them. Neil, but why? Why do we kill the holiest among us? We kill them or dishonor them, which is the same thing. Why? God, because they stand against every thought you have that would deny me. And deny me you must if you are to deny yourself. God, why would I want to deny you or me? God, because you are afraid, and because my promises are too good to be true, because you cannot accept the grandest truth, and so you must reduce yourself to a spirituality which teaches fear and dependence and intolerance, rather than love and power and acceptance. You are filled with fear. And your biggest fear is that my biggest promise might be life's biggest lie. And so you create the biggest fantasy you can to defend yourself against this. You claim that any promise which gives you the power and guarantees you the love of God must be the false promise of the devil. God would never make such a promise. You tell yourself only the devil would, to tempt you into denying God's true identity as the fearsome, judgmental, jealous, vengeful, and punishing entity of entities. Even through this description, even though the description better fits the definition of a devil, if there were one, you have assigned devilish characteristics to God in order to convince yourself not to accept the godlike promises of your Creator or the godlike qualities of the self. Such is the power of fear. I'm going to stop it there because I think that's a good place to stop it at. So that is pretty great. Y'all can ask me some questions about the material or about the information in the book, because that's what I want to talk about. I'm not doing readings, y'all, so if y'all are popping in for readings, not happening. That was in the last hour. So I'm reading. So this is Conversations with God for those of y'all who are just tuning in. So I'm going to pop through here because I want to kind of go through some of the questions here. But this, what the conversation was about with Neil and God was basically God saying, hey, y'all are responsible for your own shit, pretty much. And I'm here to witness it. I'm not here to bail you out. I'm not here to fix it for you. I'm here to simply remind you of who you are through the experiences that are available to you. But you're choosing the experience you're having because of your own personal decision-making process. And you have produced these experiences through the beginning stage of manifesting or of creating, which is thought. And so that's what God was talking about. So this is why I love this book so much, because it was one of the first books I ever read after, kind of denouncing my Catholicism and me just only identifying as being Catholic. This was the first book that helped me to question things in a very different way. We always try to blame God. We always try to blame others for our misfortunes, but there is a plan that is occurring with each and every one of us. When we get down here, when we come into life, because we all choose to come down here, we are all potential stars in heaven, and we want to express that ability to be a star, to express ourselves fully in life through the process of being alive. So we condense ourselves into this physical form. We come here, and then we start to realize it. We start to live in the fullest way possible. And there is no judgment. There is no eternal damnation or eternal fire. Like, once we're done with this life, and like we jump into our spirit form, back into our spirit form, then we essentially have to decide if we did everything we wanted to do while we were here, or we experienced everything we wanted to experience, or we want to come back and do some more. And many of us keep coming back. It's the cycle of reincarnation. But every single lifetime serves a purpose. Every single experience that we have, even if we are unconsciously suffering, because there is a conscious suffering and an unconscious suffering. And unconscious suffering is someone who is a victim in their life. They don't own any of the things that they are going through. They don't own anything that has been thrown to them or that has been given to them. They don't own any of that. They don't own any hardships or suffering, and instead they want to cast blame, and they want to make others responsible for fixing or for making it right. That's the unconscious suffering. The conscious suffering is when you own it, no matter how horrendous or how bad it is. You own whatever you experience, and you find the value in it. You try to understand the value in it. People will respond, I didn't choose this, or I didn't choose that. I didn't choose to be raped. And I can say, I didn't choose to be molested as a child. I didn't choose to be sexually assaulted as a child growing up. I didn't choose to be, touched and to be affected in that. I didn't choose those things as a child consciously in that moment, but on a soul level, there was a grander plan at play. And as I evolved and grew, and I actually, instead of looking back on that and only accepting and only focusing on the trauma and the pain that came from that, I instead look at it understanding that the trauma is part of it, understanding that the pain was part of it, but also seeing what that experience produced within me, what that experience caused in my life, what that experience created around me. So did have much bigger impacts than just the trauma, the moment of trauma itself. There's a whole grander thing to it in this way as well. I was watching this series on Netflix. It's called Night Stalker. And it's about this like serial killer out in LA and back in like the 80s. And there was a woman there, and she had been abducted by this guy. And she was a little girl. She was like 4 or 5. She was like a little kid. And he basically like raped her, and he forced her to do all these things. And so you can see her going through all of that and expressing and sharing that. But look at how courageous she was. Look at how courageous she is, because what she was able, you have to watch the series. It's a really good series. And it is not the easiest series to get through, but it is a good series because it shows you a lot of things about human nature and about people in general and etc. But she got in front of a camera and she shared her story. And I can guarantee you that there is a child out there who probably saw her and saw that story and related to it. And if that child is in so much pain and trauma that they're in shock, they can't understand the things that they just went through, just even seeing that might give that child the opportunity to go forward, to move forward, to have faith, or to hope that things will get better. There's something there. And so we don't understand how everything is so interconnected, and I hear this from clients all the time, where a client will tell me, Ferny, like, you may not remember our reading, but even though what you said, all these different things that you said they happened, but that's not the most important part of the reading for me. When we were talking towards the end, you said this thing about me having boundaries, or about me standing up to my husband or whatever, and it lit a fire under my ass. And it really made me, it just like your voice just resounded in my head, and it made me think about, what am I doing? Why am I choosing to stay in this situation? And I decided to make changes because of it. And so I hear that all the time. The little things that we do, they have huge implications. They have a huge impact on the world, and we don't realize it because we're so stuck in our own little like life, in our own little bubble. But we're all interconnected people. We're all aligned to each other, and it's important that you understand that. However, right now, you own that. Doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. You own it, and if you own that life, it's yours. You have it to do whatever you want to do with. Then you need to make conscious choices so that whatever you are suffering through, you are choosing that is what you accept as part of your life. But if you are suffering and you are casting blame, or you're blaming God, or you're refusing to own it, then you are disempowering yourself. I know a lot of people who were able to do amazing things, and they chronically suffered from a physical debilitating condition, but they still did amazing things because they didn't let that stop them. They said, okay, if this is part of the recipe of my life, I'm just going to accept that, and I'm going to do the best that I can. And some of those people did more things with their lives than people who are perfectly fine and have no ailments. And those people are hanging around doing nothing, consciously. They're just kind of like going about and really living in that like state of victimhood when they don't have an ailment or a condition that they have to struggle with. So there's a huge array and there's a huge ocean of diversity that exists, and it exists for a reason. If we decided to take every single film, every single movie, every single show, and we ended all of the conflicts, we made every single one a happy ending, and we took away all of the heartache or all of the human conditions that are suffering, that are in all of the movies and all of the films and all of the books, what the hell, why, what? Be kind of boring. Be kind of boring, right? And so we come here because we are addicted to the drama of human existence. Now, in spirit form, it is a very heavenly state to exist in. But there isn't a lot you can understand because you need an experience to understand it. When a person invents something, or they come up with an idea for an invention, they can't say, I invented that, I have that, I produced that, I made that into the world. Like they can't claim that, they can't own that because they actually didn't do anything. They just came up with an idea. The idea is the first step. And unfortunately, there's not much more you can do besides just have that idea and keep processing the idea over and over and over again. And that's what we do in spirit form. We basically have ideas. We have we have new ways of creating and new ways of existing. We come up with all these, and so we want to experience it. We want to go through it, and God is the witnessing part of that, not the producer of it, but the witness of it all. We're the producers, we're the creators, we're the ones who are that branch and that arm. We are the fruit on the tree, and God is the water that flows within all of it. So it's just the witness, it's just part of the process. Right? So let's go through here. I'm going to see what the questions are about here, because I don't want to run out of time. Sometimes I get on a roll and I want to like break stuff down or go into it, and then I forget to like come back and look at the questions. How does original sin fit in? Is that what he is talking about? The idea of original sin. So yes, to answer your question, yes, that is in essence what he is talking about. We did not begin, I have to word it in the right way so that you can kind of grasp where I'm going with this. When you are trying, let's use a pregnant woman for example, right? Let's use a female. Let's say a female wants to have a child, wants to create something new, wants to experience something new. You don't just get to like have that idea and then it happens. You actually have to go through the process of producing it through all of these moments and all of these energies and all of these coordinating events to take place to produce this child. And that does include pain as well. And so if that female gives birth and the child is born, even though there was so much pain or a tremendous amount of pain, or it was, this entire experience that goes along with it, should she have never had the child? No, she should have had the child. If that's what she wanted. If that's what she was trying to create in the world and that was what she was trying to produce, then so be it. Then that was a part of the process. In order for us to exist here, we had to accept the opposite of a heavenly state. We cannot exist as a human without accepting the condition of suffering. So when you think of like Adam and Eve, and you think of when Eve, consumed the apple or whatever, the way the story goes. First of all, a tree is a very ancient symbol for life. First of all. So the tree of knowledge or the tree of life, it's the same thing. It's a symbolic reference for life, because a tree roots itself and from it builds itself up, and then from it branches out in all directions, and then from it produces fruit with it, which then repeats the process all over again. So the idea of eating or consuming of the apple, or that's all symbolic, and what it is becoming aware. And in that moment, and even with the serpent, and again, the serpent is an old symbol of wisdom and of knowledge, because what does a serpent do? What does a snake do? A snake is actually very intelligent, and if you've ever seen a snake, they are very careful and aware of what they're doing. They're not just like going about and being completely stupid. No, they're actually trying to be as careful as possible. So they're actually very wise creatures. But it's a very old symbol of wisdom and of information that isn't always easily observable, because they kind of maneuver into crevices and get into places that we normally can't get into. This is what the serpent represents. Tree represents life, represents wisdom, represents knowledge, represents the existence of creation. It's what the tree represents. So when you think of like Adam and Eve and the story that the serpent was trying to get her to eat the fruit. And the moment that she did that, all of a sudden everything came crashing down, which is actually it's horse manure, because that's really not what would be happening in that instance, just by the symbolism of the entire story. Her consuming the fruit actually gives her the ability to understand all of creation, because by consuming the fruit, you are essentially, you are tasting all of the hard work. The tree goes through all of this work to produce that fruit, just so that it can recreate again. So she was essentially being made aware of all of creation and the reasons for it. That was what that's about. That's the symbolism there. So in doing that, of course, once you become aware of all of creation, then what tends to happen is you also become aware of every aspect of creation and every way of existing and being aware, which at that point, you no longer are aware of the heavenly state. You're aware sensitivities. They're conditioned out of their awarenesses, their emotional awarenesses, and emotions are what connect us. The ability to experience love and that form of energy is something that binds us all together. Females come in and it's almost like an acceptable thing for most females based off of society and culture. So there's an allowance there that's already granted to females, which is why if something's happening and we need to be, and we're being made aware of all of ourselves or all of, then what ends up happening at that point is that and that's what happened. She was made aware of it because of her nature. And then she tried to make them aware of stuff as well, as what the story goes. But that's that whole idea of story. So when you think of like original sin, it's all women's fault, or it's all like, when you think of all of these ideas with original sin, like original sin was not a mistake. Original sin was actually a gift that we gave ourselves. We gave ourselves the ability to be aware, self-aware, by experiencing all aspects of ourselves as divinity in form. It's what Christ tried to do when he was going around, telling people and trying to guide them to understand these truths, because he noticed it, he recognized it, he saw it and witnessed it just by observation. And if you stop getting stuck in your head and you start to pay attention to the world around you, and you pay attention to the energy exchanges between us, and you just are aware and observe, you will start to never notice before, because you're getting out of yourself individually and you're getting into everything else, which is God. But we are also God, but you're stuck in that individuated version of yourself. Open it up to everything else, and then you will experience the grander version of self. Okay. Thank you, T Squared. It's like your glasses look great. Thank you. I appreciate that. See, that one was already answered. Exactly. We are responsible for our own actions. What about birth defects? Same thing. Birth defects are the same thing. We are born as we are meant to be born. Period. Like, it wasn't, you can blame someone, and you can always blame someone for everything. But at the end of the day, if this happened and it occurred the way it occurred, then it occurred the way that it occurred. Then that means that there's a reason for it to exist in that form. And those individuals on a soul level they produce the circumstances to experience life in the way that they needed to for the purpose of self-awareness or awareness and experience in the way that they were wanting to have that experience or receive that experience. So it's all intentional. All of it is intentional. Red Robin's like, how long are we in spirit form before we are reincarnated? It depends on the individual. Some people may be in spirit form and never be born. Some beings may just exist in that state. They may not want to come into this physical form, or they may not be ready to come into this physical form. Some individuals may have already been in this form for many a times, and they're like, I'm not going back to that state. I don't need to. Like, I've got what I wanted to get out of that. So it just depends on the individual. There's not like a standard for everybody. But there is no time for them. It's all consciousness. It's all awareness. It's almost like when you're having a dream, you don't realize that if you fall asleep for like 15 minutes, but you had an entire dream that felt like it was a long ass time. There's no time, because at that point you're in this physical form. We have things that show us that there's something changing. We have the seasons, we have the sun, we have the moon, we have aging. Those things remind us of time, but time doesn't actually exist. We've just assigned time a mechanism to pay attention, because we're using cycles to measure time. But that's our way of measuring time, but time doesn't actually exist. So what we experience here is the experience of progressive motion or progressive movement, and we assign it the idea of time, right? So yes, it's a part of a larger lesson. Everything is part of a larger lesson. Even the most horrendous things I experienced in my life are part of a grander lesson. And the moment that I stopped obsessing over the suffering that I endured or the pain, then I was able to unlock the teachings within all of that, the observations that came from that as well. All of that came forward, and I was able to understand a lot of things that I didn't understand before that, because I embraced and I owned it, even though I was still very young. nature life. Like, what happens to spirits if they don't reincarnate? What happens to birds if they don't want to be a fish? So there are variations of awareness and of consciousness, and not all forms of consciousness take this physical form. There are forms of consciousness that only exist in a form of consciousness, and that's just the way it is. There's like levels, there's like layers of it as well. So not all birds are going to want to be in the ocean and act as fish, even though we're all in the ocean and we're dealing with sharks and all kinds of crap. But there are some beings who remain in their state because that is the established norm for them. So there's variations of different beings, and not all beings incarnate. Okay, let's go over here. So I got those, and let me go here. Michelle's got a question. She says, "Do we choose pain to go through? Can we pray to God and to be healed?" Okay, so this is it's complicated. It's complicated. If my soul is choosing to have an experience in physical incarnated form that teaches me or reveals to me the deepest levels of compassion, my soul is going to basically put together a plan that will allow me to have experiences in my lifetime that help me to connect and to relate and to bind to deep levels of compassion. Many times people don't express compassion unless they understand suffering on the deepest level. Because when someone endures very, very, very significant levels of suffering, they also have the unique ability to sympathize or empathize with other people who are also suffering. And if those individuals who understand it are in positions to release or to reduce suffering, those people can change the world. And there have been masters who have come who have tried this. So that is essentially a gift to that individual on a soul level. In a human form, we don't remember those things, those agreements with life, those choices that we made on a higher level from a higher perspective. So we're just kind of in the moment, and we're just kind of dealing with stuff without the knowledge of the future and what's coming for our personal life, but also why we're doing it or what's the whole point. We kind of have to figure it out while we're here. If I am supposed to endure a painful experience because that experience will transform me and help me to understand things that I am meant to understand, then I can pray as much as I want, but I'm going to have an experience that produces that within me. Now, I may be able to reduce the level of suffering or reduce the unique experiences that I will have. I may be able to reduce it so that I don't have to go through, it's one thing if I can get burned by a candle, or I can like burn up in a fire and completely be have to go through reconstruction surgery. Either way, there's suffering involved with that. Do I need to go through that whole song and dance and having to go through reconstructive surgery? Or can I just learn the lesson by having a little burn on my hand or a little burn with a candle, right? So it comes down to like intensity level. So if you're supposed to go through something, you're going to go through it, period. And that's kind of, and I know that, Neil was talking about that there's no predestination or destiny. That's what I feel is what destiny is. So for me, that's what that is a plan. That's the plan. But you don't have to go through the most extreme versions of that plan, so it comes down to that. And that's, I feel, we have a lot of control over. This is why every day I affirm to God, like, God, only send me the people that I can help or the people that I can do something for and serve in the best way possible. The people I cannot serve or the people who do not serve me, send them somewhere else because I don't need to deal with them. That is a mantra that I have every single day. And I have that mantra because for me, it affirms my choice that I know I'm going to encounter some people who may not be the easiest to deal with, or some people who may be more of a struggle than others. I know that I'm going to deal with things from a human level because I'm still human. I'm in this body and this is the world of suffering. However, I don't have to deal with it every single day. I don't have to go through it every single time it's available to go through. I don't have to go through that because I can probably learn my lesson, or I can probably understand whatever with one or two occurrences of this. This is why I'm very grateful that I only have to deal with like issues with clients like maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Like a year, that's like nothing. Because I have friends who do this work and they deal with issues almost every week, like 3 or 4 times a week. And I'm like, I would hate to be you because you're miserable. Your miserable energy is producing more misery for you, and you're not making yourself accountable to that. So I don't operate that way. I operate from a very different way. So if I do have a client and it is a challenging experience, at first, I'm going to get all worked up and I'm going to get all, rowdy. But once I actually stop and say, okay, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do. I'm going to try to make it better for myself. Once I examine it or pay attention, there's something to be gained from that. And there's always something to be gained from that. And I don't ignore that. I don't take it lightly because I know that there's something that I can definitely benefit from on an individual level and from a spiritual level if I just look past the initial experience of suffering. Once you look past the initial experience of suffering, there's a lot more there that you may not realize or that you might benefit from. So prayer is, when I pray, I don't pray for God to fix my problems or for God to fix the world. I ask for the ability to have more love for the world. I ask to serve as best as I can in this state and in this form. I ask to be used as a tool of knowledge or wisdom or understanding. I ask God to use me and to help me to achieve the grandest version of myself that I can in this lifetime. That doesn't mean success the way most people associate with success. It just means serving a purpose that affects and that can impact as many people as possible. That's what I pray for. So I pray for that. I pray that people allow more love into their lives, or that if I speak and I say something that is rooted in truth in their core, that they hear me. I pray for that. I pray. So those are the kinds of prayers. I don't pray. If I'm going through an issue, I pray that I be given an opportunity to understand it as much as I can and to do whatever I can to reduce its impact of suffering on my life or on the life of others and to improve it as best as I can. I pray for that. I pray for the ability to do something, not for someone to do it for me. So it's a prayer of that as well. So it's like someone's ill and they're in the hospital room and they are not doing too well. I don't pray for them to be healed. I pray that they either accept their ability to heal, that they accept it, that they choose it. I pray for that, or that they make the choice to let go and to move forward if that is what best serves them. I ask that be done. So I'm in unity with God. I don't fight against the will of life because it is what it is. I can't force someone to be healed. When I used to do Reiki and I used to do, hands-on healing, because that's what it is, it's hands-on healing. In the beginning stages, I wanted to be Jesus. I was like, I'm going to heal you. I'm going to heal you from all these pains. That's how I was in the beginning because I was really cocky and arrogant and I thought like I could be the Jesus. And that wasn't working out very well. In fact, actually nothing happened and the opposite of anything would happen. Like literally nothing would happen. So I was like, okay, that's not working. And I got tired because I was like, I know I'm supposed to help people. I know I'm supposed to give people, healing. I don't know how to do it. And this is not working. And and so what I was told or what was given to me was stop trying to tell God what to do. Stop trying to tell the world what to do. Stop trying to tell that person what to do. Just let yourself serve as a vessel for the exchange of energy because you're only a stand-in for the higher experience of healing or of being healed. You cannot force healing upon a person. You can only offer them the opportunity of self-healing. They must choose it, and I will act as a intermediary. And that's what I did. So I just stopped trying to force or control the process, and I just gave myself over to being used in any way, shape, or form that best served the individual and best served source. And that was it. And in the process of making that shift, it was a simple change in my mind of how I was going to operate mentally. It actually started to shift the way that the energy was moving. And I actually started to have experience after experience after experience of people telling me what they were feeling. Like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, oh my God, I can feel that. Or that's so weird. That's crazy that I can feel all this stuff. So people could feel things at that point, and things were changing in people's lives, and they were having healings, not because it was me, but because I just simply allowed myself to serve as the intermediary, as a vessel. And sometimes we need to feel that loving force from the divine. Sometimes we're so caught up in our own minds that when we have someone else acting as the intermediary, it gives us a path to feel connection to our highest form, our highest being, our source. And it gives us permission to heal ourselves. It gives us and grants us acceptance of our own ability to heal, because it's coming from the grander version, or it's coming from this representative. It's why the churches existed for so long, because people don't trust their own ability to connect with God or to talk to God. They someone that has more value or has more worth. And when they think of a church leader, they assume more value or worth. When they think of a religious path, they think of more value or more worth. When they think of a book like the Bible, they think of a path that gives them a chance to connect with something higher than themselves. But they don't need it. They don't need it. None of us need it. It's there for us to connect with if we'll just trust ourselves and go within by self-examining, by questioning, by having conversations inside of ourselves. And that will allow it to start to reveal in a little trickle at first, and then it'll start to show up in affirmations and synchronicities all throughout our lives. And so what we are experiencing within is reinforced from the without. So that's how that works. That's why I don't really go to people for readings, or I don't go to other mediums, because I feel that I have the ability to receive it myself. I don't need someone to tell me that. Now, if I'm being super stubborn or hard-headed about something, God, please send someone to kind of shake me out of it, because I need to be told. But for the most part, I believe I have that direct connection and line to God, as we all do. I just trust it, and I put stock in it, and that's the only difference. So that's what allows me to have that connection and to receive the wisdom that I receive through the channelings that I do and all of that. So, all right, guys, I am done. I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to be back next Wednesday, same time, same place for our Course in Miracles study group. So